begin our story in E21, where the chassis team had received the tubing after it had been bent and notched, and they began to weld the frame.
Alright, so the chassis started out with sending it out to CRD. I think we got that back around, when did we get it back? Mid-February. But before that, we had to design and cut the jig out. That took, I think we finished the day after we got our tubes. So once the tubes were done, our back end, got to set the jig up and then put it in the jig. That took like a day to tack everything up to where it was good enough. And then our welder for hire, Austin, came in and knocked out a bunch of stuff. Then we knocked it out of the jig and finished it up in a day or two, well, mostly Austin. But so we were done with the chassis. I think it was February 20 something. But yeah, so everything turned out pretty good. I don't know what else to say.
Done my molds using the CNC router in the shop with John to see if them together and prep them for laying up the carbon fiber. I made a backup dash in case that one doesn't fit, so we can pass the cockpit inspections. We're going to be water fitting that later this week, out of carbon fiber along with the rest of the firewall. And as far as what I have left to do, I just need to mount the harness tabs mount the harness tabs to the chassis, and I'll probably do that next week.
Got the headrest here. Still need to do a little work on it. We're gonna have Velcro on the back, and we're gonna have two headrests. Got the seat. Still need to get the foam inside. The firewall is right here. Still working on cutting out the inner part of the firewall. This back part is cut out. Just waiting for powertrain to cut the holes they need into it, and then we'll get that on. That's it.
I've been working on, I just finished cutting the router, and then I'm working on cutting the middle part of the under tray, and I'm now working on also prepping the jig for the rear part of the under tray and prepping the mold for the diffuser that just finished cutting. And I'm going to be working on a little further on getting material from the back of the shop for the nose cone mold, and then hopefully as soon as possible start laying up something.
But you see that sucker over there? 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds.
That's right, Mr. President. Anyway, on to suspension.
Made so far is the jig for the rotors, and I did that by milling out a block just a short distance down, and my next step is to throw those rotors on there, bolt them down, and slot them, so make those slots. And I'm going to do that with the ball end mill, and then if time permits, what we're going to do is fill up those holes that I water jetted out of them, and then after that we got to face it and then cut off the edges, and then my rotors will be done. I've also water jetted all of the rotors, so they're all ready to go.
Is it the other side?
Alright, so for my parts, the pedals are, every component is done. I just need to, and with the help of Austin, we were able to weld everything together. It's just a matter of integrating everything into the car now. So what we need to do is start getting a stop ready for the pedals. We're also working on the steering. The tie rods are done. They just need to have the inserts welded on and the fan screwed in, and that'll be ready. The column is almost ready. We have it set up. We have some sleeves done and everything. We just need to make some holes and then cut it to length, and then that should be good to go. The steering wheel is being being tackled by one of our fabulous underclassmen, Michael. So I have confidence that he's doing a great job with that. Apart from that, everything's looking pretty good.
Wait.
Yeah, alright, so far this is where we're at. The front two hubs have been CNC laid out. The next part is for the rear two hubs to be CNC laid out. If we take a step over here, you can see the third hub is being CNC laid out. This is the rear hub. We still have this one to go here. The Fusion 3, so once these are finished being laid out, they'll be thrown onto the mill, and there they will be. We will use a Fusion 360 or a CAM software to assist in the manufacturing process. The 360 is pretty much ready to rock.
Nicola Banelas. I'm in charge of the upright suspension team. What we're working on right now is finalizing the jig setup to do the back side of our uprights. So right now, all of our uprights are complete where we have the front side done. And what we're going to do is we're going to remove the uprights from the stop, and then we're going to place these uprights on our jig so that we can clamp it down with the holes on the front side. We'll clamp it down, hold it down so we can complete the back side. And after that, the uprights will be 100% done. So that's it.
Update for the suspension parts. The kinematics parts. The control arms, we are no longer machining them, mostly just because we didn't have machine time, and it doesn't look like we are going to get any machine time anytime soon. So we switched the design to one that is made out of little bearing housings that are just basically little round cups, and a plate that we will have either water jet or lasered out. And then we will just cut some slots in the ends of the tubes, slip the tubes over the plates, weld it together, and then that's done. So we're almost done doing FEA on all of them, and then we're going to have them cut out, and we should have those done by the assuming that the material gets here in time, which it should. Other than that, the pull rods are finished. The toe arm bars have been cut to length, so we just need to weld the threaded bungs onto the end of those, and then thread the rod ends into them, and then they'll be finished as well. And then we will be waiting for the uprights and the hubs to finish up, and then we can jig up the suspension and start welding on tabs onto the chassis. If that doesn't happen, then we might start using 3D printed parts as a stand-in to be able to jig it up. And then that way, if we can use a 3D printed stand-in to jig up the rest of the suspension, then we can get the tabs welded on, get the control arms mounted, and then we can use Titan 15's hubs and uprights to at least start getting the car on the dyno for the powertrain team. And then we can also use the 3D printed uprights to start doing things like testing articulation and even testing steering angles with the toe arms and stuff in the front. And test the location of the steering rack, which is currently tacked up and just waiting on the rest of the suspension to be able to be finished welded. And I think that's pretty much it as far as the kinematics parts. We are still needing to design the rear shock pads, but they're very, very simple. The fronts are actually already cut out. We just need to weld them on once we have everything else jigged up just to be safe. And yeah, I believe that is pretty much it for the
The intake manifold has entirely been printed out. It's currently sitting on the car. It's ready to run. The metal components of the intake are going to be printed out hopefully by the end of this week, and then shipped out so that they can be debinded and centered. And the ram pipe is the final 3D printed part of the intake manifold that does need to get done, but it's not a crucial part, and it should be pretty quick to make. And that is there just to encourage more air to enter into the engine, and also to ensure that we fit inside of the space allotted to us per the rulebook.
As far as the exhaust, this is exhaust. It's done. As far as being able to be used, it's got to test it out, make sure it actually comes to the 108 decibels that it's supposed to be designed at. So testing will come once we get the rest of the engine going. But other than that, it has aluminum cans, so that was one issue. Carbon went bad, so backup as of right now is going to be these aluminum muffler cans, and it's just going to be easy to swap out, just a couple rivets and redo. So other than that, it's all good to go. So all the piping here is 304 stainless steel at 60 thou thick, and so it's going to be really heat resistant. And it's really, really strong. The brackets are made out of 316 stainless, and then, like I said, the cans are going to be aluminum with the planning on going to carbon mufflers. As far as what I've left, it's more just tidying everything up, including taping up the harness, making sure it's going to be heat proof and like vibration resistant, so it doesn't tear any of the wires open. I have to connect a couple sensors, so that's something that'll take me another, couple minutes. But most part, it's all done. It's all wired up. Something that the shifter will do later. But that's about it. It's mostly done.
we're looking at this week, we're going to be manufacturing the fuel tank and be welding up the fuel tank as well as putting it in. Plan is to take apart the fuel pressure regulator and kind of make sure everything is set for our fuel. And otherwise, we should be looking good for competition.
Cams are done.
So far, I have cut out the mounts. I finished this one. All I have to do is have an underclassman shave it down with some sandpaper.
I'm sorry, did you say you did that?
John helps me. And then we also water jetted this out. I have to surface this using the code right here that I'm coming up with. I have to use this code, pretty much shave it down by 0.25, and then after that I have to do we have to cut these holes by 0.075, and this hole as well by 0.075, and then I have to do the same thing with this hole. And that's all I have for drag training so far.
The oil pan top plate has been water jetted out with Nick's help, and the outer bolt holes will be tapped this week. As for the bottom portion of the pan, I've completed most of the Fusion 360 setup for it, and will look to complete machining it by the end of next week.
For Aero, I honestly have been deprioritizing it as far as my time goes, just because the rest of the car is so much further behind than we wanted it to be. But we are getting material. We did get material, so we have carbon to use. I'm going to start looking around for people to actually cut the foam to make the wings. This week we are hopefully in the next couple of days going to get our scale model car into the wind tunnel, and from that we'll be able to get numbers for lift and drag that we can compare with our CFD numbers to get an idea of how accurate our simulations have been, and we can also use that sort of hopefully linear scaling factor to determine the lift for parts that we aren't possibly able to get into the wind tunnel. Other than that, Karen is currently working on the under tray molds. We don't have any molds for the wings. We won't cut those until things have been put through the wind tunnel at least. And then we should be pretty quickly cutting foam, I think, for the wings and to start trying to make them. And then maybe possibly even break one or two, see how strong they are. But the priority is getting suspension done so that we can get the car rolling and dyno and testing.
The rear wing design is more or less complete. Hopefully next week we can do some wind tunnel testing to validate our CFD. And then shortly thereafter, we can begin to do some really quick angle of attack adjustments so that we can balance our center of pressure with the center of gravity of the car. And then immediately after that, we can start contracting out the foam cutting for our foam cores, like Austin previously mentioned, and really get going on the Aero project.
For Aero, we have pretty much our set configuration. We just need to validate everything, and then from there we'll start tackling putting that together.
And here's a short time lapse of the under tray and diffuser being printed out for the scale model.
Hey, for Dave, right? Hey, welcome to Lyft.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my underground lair. I have gathered here before me the world's deadliest assassins, and yet each of you has failed
to race at comp. And now I would like to request on behalf of the Formula SAE team a new budget of $1 million